Everybody, it's Daryl, and I'm coming to you again from our Goby workshop where we have really had a good day. We've got Gav outside and Vaughan at home. I'm going to bring Vaughan in now. Vaughan, just to say, we're having a great day here. We are missing you though. I believe you've got some questions for Gav and particularly Luke as well. Maybe you can take us through what you want to know.
Yeah, no problem. How's it look? I can see you there in the background. How are you doing? Good, and you? Sorry I missed you this morning. Awesome. Luke, look, I mean, this is obviously a workshop that we're giving on behalf of the Goby Environmental Project as well as Fielding Dreams. And an important component of this has been your presentation around child protection. Can you just, for the purposes of our viewers, guys watching this live feed, is what is child protection and why is this so important?
So in the context of our country, child protection kind of emanates from our signing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the fact that we have a constitution that protects children's rights, and we have a set of laws that us as adult duty bearers to the rights of children need to know in order for us to discharge our duties to protect the rights of children. And those rights of children are inalienable rights, so they're rights we cannot remove. And if those rights are met, children can feel safe and as a result can learn and reach their full potential. So the laws that I'm going through today are the educators' roles in terms of the Children's Act, their duty to report, what to report and to whom, the Sexual Offences Act, what to report to whom, and the Child Justice Act. And that is where we have young people offending against other young people. So in other words, it's a juvenile justice case, and that's dealt with in terms of a restorative justice approach. And it's really to assist people to think in terms of their duties to protect children under the law, how they discharge those duties, and the importance of doing those in order for children to be safe so they can learn and reach their full potential.
Sure. Now, Luke, you've been addressing some 50-odd teachers there today, and it's probably been mind-boggling for them just in terms of what they need to absorb and what they need to do and how they need to look out. So how can a teacher assist in this process, and what should a teacher be looking out for in terms of looking at potential areas of abuse amongst their learners?
First thing is that, I look at speaking to teachers about what their motive was to teach. And most teachers want to make a difference in the lives of children. And we have to recognize that, by virtue of the fact that we're in the lives of children, we make a difference. That can be a negative difference and it can be a positive difference. So it's relational in its nature. So if you have a relationship with a child, you will be able to know if something appears to not be going right. So child was a very introverted child. They're suddenly very aggressive. A child was very extroverted. They're suddenly very withdrawn and introverted. The child is, examples I gave in the workshop today, the child at a young age is drawing things that are sexual in nature that they shouldn't know, using language they shouldn't know. And all of those need to be taken as what we call early intervention or a risk assessment, where we say, I recognize based on what I know of this child in the context of the relationship I have with him, that something is not right. The next step in that is what to do about it. So if we suspect something, it's about getting the right psychological, social work support services. And if we know a child's been abused, which legal mechanisms kick in, how to activate those, and how to advocate that those are met. Because often our system to protect children is actually quite broken at times.
Sure. Then look, it might be a bit of a silly question, but what is the responsibility ultimately of the parent? We know that a lot of the learners may not necessarily have parents. They come from child-edited homes. They've got various other issues that they're faced with. But what would the responsibility be of the parent if something is happening, perhaps even at school, or with some of the learners' friends that they may be abusing or bullying? Should the parent step in and maybe even engage the teacher in that respect for assistance?
So parents are the first duty bearers to their children. So ultimately, we want to empower parents. So in other words, we want to give parents the opportunity to behave in ways that protect and develop their children. And if they can't, we need to intervene. So we call them the most empowering, least restrictive option. So ultimately, I want to be able to inform parents of what they need to be doing. For example, in the case you use of bullying, that not necessarily the parent must go and intervene with the child that is bullying their child, but potentially go to the school and say, look, we need to engage with the parents of the child so we can do some kind of mediation, alternative dispute resolution. I get the school to assist with facilitating that. But ultimately, we are the gods of our children's childhoods, and we as parents are the greatest protectors of our children. So if you look at the greatest protective mechanism for children against anything in the world, that's substance abuse, being a bully, unempathic, getting abused, etc. That's our relationship as parents with our children is the first protective factor. What we've got to be cognizant of as service providers is that we don't undermine or judge parents. So that if the parents don't quite know what to do or something goes wrong in the family, that we don't come in as these kind of all-conquering heroes and kind of knights, knights in shining armor to save the day. Because ultimately, that child's got to go home. We want that child to go home to a place where they can be parented more effectively. So we want to see those crises as opportunities rather than as something terminal where we blame the parents for the way that their children are being raised.
Sure. My last question for you, Luke. I know your time is pressed, but just we have representation from special needs schools as well as the able-bodied schools. Now, we are aware of the fact that unfortunately, young people that are in special needs, whichever special need it might be, have been faced with abuse. Is there any specific or streamlined protection for special needs children? Is there kind of a separate approach as far as that's concerned, or is it just or is it approached in the same manner?
Okay, it's a great question. So the first thing is that children who are disabled, they are probably 3 times more likely to be abused than children who are not disabled. And that's sort of across the board, all different kinds of abuse and, all different kinds of disabilities. Our job, the system is the same. So the short answer is the system's the same. But what we have to recognize, if you look at something like the ICF, the International Classification of Functioning, you recognize that there is some form of limitation. So say, for example, in cerebral palsy, there may be a motor limitation, and that motor limitation relates to expressive language being difficult, but their receptive language may be perfect. So in other words, they can understand everything perfectly, but can't speak due to the motor complication. Now, what that creates in our criminal justice system is an accessibility problem, because our legal system requires, our criminal legal system in particular, requires information viva voce or by a voice, which cannot be given by a young person with, say, spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy, can't mouth the words due to the motor impairment. So what we need to be able to do as a society is we need to recognize that limitation, and we need to say that that limitation should not in any way affect the ability to participate in the criminal justice system. So we go from the limitation to understanding that we have to mitigate that by some form of accessibility so that they can enter the system. Because if a child has perfect receptive language, they can narrate, provided they're given the accessibility tools to narrate it. So it's about creating accessibility in the system that inherently excludes them, for example, with things like viva voce evidence. And that's a big advocacy thing that needs to happen, because a lot of the reason that young people are disabled or at risk is they cannot access the systems to protect them.
Yeah. No, Luke, thank you. I really appreciate your time. You're a wealth of knowledge. Your guidance is very much appreciated, and it's certainly going to help those that are listening to you and attending the workshop today. Much appreciated. Thank you, sir. Your mic is off, Daryl.
Sorry about that. Let's we'll end this broadcast and then let Gav get to the teachers, and we can restart a new broadcast and get some of the feedback from our teachers and what they've enjoyed about today.
Absolutely. Good. Thanks very much and good luck.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back shortly just on with Gav and what the teachers have thought about today. So we'll see you shortly.